back to Zane Customs. In this week's episode, I'm going to be sculpting a lava monster. So this sculpt was a little bit of a failure. I still carried through with the whole thing, and it looks decent in the end, but I'll get into why it was kind of a failure throughout the video. But just to start off, I started off in Forger, and I wanted it to be a big hulking monster that was coming out of the lava. So I decided to have the bottom half of its torso be full lava and kind of have the impression of legs, because I want him to be like walking forward, so you kind of have the impression of his legs pulling forward, but I want it to look like lava's just dripping out of his body. So that's why I cut off his legs and then going with what looks like a dress or something here. It's actually supposed to just be lava pouring out of his body. And as per usual with all my sculpts, I try to keep them as symmetrical as possible. That one wasn't really possible in this case because, again, I wanted to have these big, long, kind of goopy lava legs, and obviously if you have him in movement, he's not going to be symmetrical. So his legs aren't symmetrical, but his upper body is, and I leave him symmetrical for the majority of the sculpting process until I get relatively happy with where I'm at, and then I'll repose them and then do any final sculpts. But right here I'm just basically working on the anatomy, and so I decided to sculpt this first off because me and my buddy came up with an idea for a lava monster board game, kind of based off like Lava Monster that you'd play as a kid on like a playground or something, but we made a board game out of it, and I thought it was really fun, so I thought I would design some little game pieces, and one of them being the lava monster. And the reason I would consider it a failure is because this wasn't really the design I was going for. I kind of just freestyled it. I just got in Forger and was like, hey, lava monster, and this is where I ended up. But what I really wanted was more, wanted to look a lot thicker and more goopy, and I didn't want him to be all muscles and rock, and you'll see in the end I end up adding a lot of rock to him, but I didn't want him to be so defined muscle-wise and stuff. I wanted him to be more just a mass of lava, which is one problem I have a lot. I tend to make things look a little too superhero-ish. Everyone's just overly muscly, but that's kind of my forte. That's what I like doing, so that's my default. But I do want to try sculpting the lava monster again in that more just like straight lava feel, because this feels more like a buff dude that's got lava pouring off of him, where I want it to just feel like the monster is lava. But I did realize pretty early on that design wise this sculpt wasn't going where I had originally intended, but I still liked the look of it and thought it would be a fun sculpt to work on anyway, so I decided to just finish it out, and I think it ends up looking pretty good, especially once I get it into ZBrush, because then I could add color into it, and I start to add some rock textures to make it look like it's more of a lava rock with liquid lava cracks coming in underneath, and I think it looks pretty cool. But really what I was most excited about was the idea of having his legs, like having him walking forward in this motion and then having the lava dripping off. I thought that was looking pretty good, so I decided to just keep going with it. Also, another problem is the design I wanted to pull off would be a little game piece for a board game, again, that me and my buddy made up. And the board game isn't necessarily like designed for children, like it's for all ages, but I did think that this lava monster ended up looking a little bit creepy, especially with what I'm doing here with the face. It looks a lot like a monster, which I guess, lava monster, but it looks a little creepier than I was intending as well. One struggle I did have with the sculpting process is you can't really tell at this point, but I had realized that I wanted to do some parts of his body to look like stone, and then some of it to be lava. So like all these, like his face and the top of his forearms and some bits on his legs and his chest, I decided those will be stone, but the rest of it is lava. And deciding how to sculpt the lava was a big challenge. As you can see here, like coming down his neck, I have these kind of lines of motion, and I like that, but also it kind of just looks like an overly buff dude with a lot of veins. And I also didn't want it to look like it was water either, so that was kind of a struggle going back and forth to get a good sense of flow to make it look like it was lava, because lava's thicker than water and obviously it doesn't flow as quick and things like that. And one thing I personally think helped a lot was adding these little globs of lava falling off his forearms and his legs and stuff, because to me it just made it look like whatever he's made out of was kind of thick and viscous, and it wasn't so much like water, which would be more fluid and would kind of splash out more. This material to me looked like it was thicker and make big globs and goops would be pouring off, and I think that kind of helped, in my opinion, to make it look more like lava. You can really start to see here too what I was talking about earlier, where I said I made him a little too much of a muscle man, and like I said earlier, that's kind of a problem I have, where that's kind of my default. If something's not working, or even if it is working, sometimes I'll just go ahead and add in a lot of muscle definition to make him just look like a shredded monster. Which, I love superheroes and I love comic books, and that's part of my background and how I got into art. But one challenge I'm trying to set myself is do different body types, and I think my best feature as far as an artist is anatomy. That's what I'm best at, and it's easier for me to just take that anatomy and take it to the extreme, because if you know it well enough, you can kind of do whatever you want. And like sometimes you can kind of make up muscles, like in the back here he's got muscles going on that aren't real muscles, but he's a lava monster, so it doesn't matter, for one. And then second, if it looks good enough, you could, even if you're doing a human, sometimes you can trick people with made up muscles just because they might not know anatomy well enough. So that's part of the reason I kind of default to this, just because it's what I've done the most. But like I said, I'd like to I've been lately trying to challenge myself to do different types of bodies and things like that. But once I got basically all the muscle done and like adding in veins or anything I want, I still wanted more of that sense of flow. So one thing I did, and you can see on his left arm here, is I went in and kind of cut in lines connecting through the whole body. So it almost looks like I'm adding definition to specific muscles, but I was trying to make it look more like the lava's flowing over, like not like lava flowing over muscles, but more like the muscles are lava and lava's flowing through it, if that makes more sense. And I think in some places it works, some places it just kind of looks like skin, but once I color it all in, then it's pretty obvious what it's meant to be. And here I'm finally in ZBrush, and I think this is when the sculpt really comes together and starts to look really good, because for one, here I'm adding a base, but mainly because I finally added color into the whole thing, and I think that really is what pulls it all together. And I just added this simple base because I was thinking of this as a game piece in the beginning, and at this point I had decided, this won't be the game piece that I want, but I still wanted a similar game piece look, so it's more like a Warhammer minifig or something like that, where it's just simple on a simple sculpt on a base. And I could have done a whole lava base, but I thought this idea of just a simple base with him kind of coming up out of it and having the lava splash out looked cool, so I decided to go with that. And then here I'm playing around with the materials a lot. I'm using this one material called Jelly Bean because it has a little bit of a translucent effect, which I thought I wanted at the beginning because it's lava, but then I realized lava it's not really transparent at all. It's not like water, so I ended up going with this metallic one because if you crank the lighting up, it looks like it's glowing. So I did that, and then you'll see in a bit here, once I start doing the rock, which I kind of struggled with a little bit, I actually go in and paint that black, and I use a different material that's more matte and not so reflective, and it gives it kind of the black igneous or lava rock, whatever you call it. It gave it that look, which is what I was going for. So what I'm doing here is masking off the parts of his head that I want to look like the lava rock, the stone. Basically because I want two separate materials, and just to get into materials real quick, just a little basic understanding. If you look in the bottom left, I have a little color chooser box, and then right above that is a box, and that's the material box, and this current one says Matte Cap Gorilla. And basically you have different materials, and the different materials can be changed. You can change their color and all that, but the material is more specific to lighting and things like that. So for example, right here I got the Matte Cap Gorilla, which I'm using as a black igneous rock, and then every once in a while you'll see it switch to a Z metal, which is meant for like metal texturing, but I use it and turn it yellow, and it's got this nice glow effect. And again, that's because the matte cap, or the Z metal has a lot of high reflections, whereas the matte cap doesn't, and it's more of a matte, like as far as reflections, like matte, no reflection material. And you can use colors to kind of break that illusion. So here you can see I'm painting it all in black, but some of it looks like it's got some yellow reflection, but that's actually just from me painting on with a yellow matte cap. And this is all kind of confusing and might be going over your head, but basically the whole idea is you can choose whatever color you want, and then you can choose the material, so you can get different reflections or different glossiness or whatever you want. And using that, you can get some really cool effects. Like in ZBrush, there is a specific material for glowing, but it doesn't work very well in my opinion. At least with the knowledge I have, I haven't been able to get it to work very well. So using the Z metal, which isn't really meant for reflective materials, but using that and cranking up the lighting in the scene, it really looks like this lava monster is glowing. And that's basically the whole point of materials, just to finish off your sculpt and paint them and make them look like they're not just a piece of clay or a piece of plastic that you sculpted in a computer. And there's a lot of other programs you can use, like Substance Painter, and I know there's a bunch of other ones to get even better effects, but I'm still kind of a beginner at this stuff, so I just use the in-house ZBrush painting and texturing, and I think in this instance it turned out looking pretty well. Sculpting while you have your model fully colored sometimes it makes it harder to see. That's why most people sculpt with just a simple kind of a plasticky gray material, like the basic one you saw at the beginning of the video, just because it's easier to see all your details. And once I have like this glowing lava look, it gets hard to see some of them. So that's why you can see me hop back and forth, and like right now it's just all black, just makes it easier to see what I'm doing. But when I'm finished, I'll turn the lava texturing back on. But also it kind of helps because like here I'm adding this rock texture on top of all the rock pieces I did, and basically because in ZBrush your sculpting area has a certain amount of pixels, so you can't see so much detail in that. You can crank it up, but then ZBrush runs slower and things like that. So basically what I'm trying to say is sometimes you can't see all the detail until like later on when you go out to render an image. And one thing that does help again is turning off the lighting on certain parts, and it makes it look a lot better and easier to see all the detail that you've been putting in. So that's the finished sculpt right there. I'll throw some pictures up at the end, some high quality renders, but that's pretty much everything. As per usual, I put every sculpt I do up on Etsy for anybody interested in them, and you can also check out my Instagram if you like my work, you want to see anything else I'm working on. I try to post on Instagram every day, and I try to post a YouTube video every Monday, so if you're interested in that, I'd really appreciate it. Anyone willing to subscribe or like or comment or anything. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.